The midnight call, a phone from the afterlife. Alex stirred awake, his room steeped in darkness. His phone's screen glowed softly on his nightstand, its caller ID blank. The time was 12:00 a.m. exactly. He stared at the screen, his heartbeat quickening. No one should be calling him this late, and there was no number, no name, no clue who was on the other end. Hesitating, he swiped to answer, pressing the phone to his ear. "Alex!" The whisper was faint, ghostly, barely audible. He pulled the phone away, staring at the screen in confusion, but before he could say anything, the line went dead. Alex sat up, his mind racing, replaying the sound. The voice seemed almost familiar, yet he couldn't place it. He told himself it was a prank or some technical glitch. But as he lay back down, he couldn't shake the sense that someone was reaching out to him. The next night, at precisely midnight, his phone rang again. The blank caller ID stared back at him, and against his better judgment, he answered. This time, the voice was clearer. It whispered, "Alex, remember me?" A chill crept down his spine. This voice, he was certain now, it sounded like his grandmother's. She'd passed away years ago, but the memory of her voice haunted him now, just as she'd once haunted his childhood with eerie stories of a cursed house on the outskirts of town. She had told him to stay away, that it was filled with spirits that could trap you forever. Each night the calls continued. The whispers grew longer, more intense. She spoke of places from his past, his old elementary school, his favorite ice cream shop, even his childhood bedroom, all delivered in that same eerie tone, laced with a warning he couldn't decipher. By the fifth night, Alex was losing sleep, consumed by questions. Why was his grandmother calling him now? And why did she seem desperate? Then on the seventh night, the message changed. "Alex, come find me where you left me." His blood ran cold. He hadn't thought of it in years, but memories came flooding back. The last time he'd been with his grandmother, she had taken him to the very house she warned him about. They'd never gone inside. She'd only stood at the edge, muttering words he couldn't understand. She'd been tense, almost frightened, pulling him away before he could protest. The next morning, she was gone. Unable to ignore the calls any longer, Alex made a decision. He would go to that house, hoping it would silence the voice and bring him peace. That night, he arrived at the property. The house was an imposing structure, shrouded in the shadows of dead trees. Its broken windows stared back at him like empty eyes, daring him to step inside. The air was thick with decay and an eerie silence that seemed to press against his chest. He entered, clutching his phone, his only source of light in the suffocating darkness. The floorboards groaned beneath him, each step echoing in the vast emptiness of the house. Shadows seemed to move at the edges of his vision. And as he walked deeper, a sense of dread filled him, thickening with each step. His phone buzzed in his hand, the screen lighting up at midnight exactly. He hesitated, staring at the blank caller ID before answering. "Why did you come here?" The voice hissed, louder now, sharp with anger. "You shouldn't have come." A flickering shadow shifted before him, and Alex realized it was a figure. A woman, her back turned. She stood perfectly still, yet he could feel her presence bearing down on him like a weight. He whispered, "Grandma?" Slowly she turned. Her face was hollow, her eyes dark pits, and she reached a skeletal hand toward him. "I tried to protect you," she rasped, her voice barely human. "But now, you've brought yourself here. You belong to them." The shadows in the house seemed to come alive, twisting and writhing, forming shapes, faces, hands reaching out from the walls. Panic surged through him, but as he turned to run, the front door slammed shut, sealing him in. His phone buzzed in his hand again, displaying a text message. "It's too late, Alex. Run if you can." But as he sprinted through the corridors, each hallway seemed to loop back to the same spot. The house was trapping him, pulling him deeper into its grip. The shadows around him grew denser, colder, whispering secrets he didn't want to hear. He stumbled into a room at the end of the hall and froze. The walls were lined with photographs of him, every stage of his life, every birthday, every moment he thought he'd experienced alone. His grandmother's voice echoed in his ears. "I was never gone, Alex. I've been here all along, watching you, waiting for you." Suddenly, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder. He turned, but no one was there. The whispers grew louder, morphing into cries, laughter, weeping. The house was alive, feeding on his fear, and he realized too late that he wasn't alone. The final message flashed on his phone screen, unreadable through the glitching text. But one word stood out: run. But there was nowhere left to run. The shadows closed in, pulling him into the walls, and as he vanished, his last scream echoed through the empty house. By morning, there was no trace of Alex, just another photo on the wall, another soul claimed by the darkness. The next night at midnight, a new call rang out from his phone. To one of his family member, it screened blank, no number, no name, waiting for the next one to answer. Thank you for joining me in the shadows. If you enjoyed the journey, please subscribe and share a creepy Vault 45 with friends, because some chills are best when we're not alone.